we're recording. We're live, everybody. In 3, 2, 1, we're live. All right. Hello, everybody. My name is Andres, and we are at the Baking Steel Test Kitchen. And today we have something real exciting for you. We're talking bread. And we're going to make a 24-hour artisan bread using our baking steel. And we've got this new setup inside the oven to create some steam to give you guys that kind of bakery effect, so you can create some incredible artisan loaves with great flavor, great texture, all within the use of the steel that you already have at home. Unless you don't have a steel, and then maybe you need one. We can talk about that later. But we have a special guest. We have actually 2 guests. We have Craig, who's always here. Guys, say hi to Craig.
Hi.
Hi to Chef Craig. And then we've got Ben.
Hey guys, what's up, everyone?
Welcome. So yeah, is that a good? That's good right there, right? Yeah. Awesome. So we've got Ben, our residential bread guru, to help us create some magic in the oven, right?
Yeah.
So Ben's been working on some secret recipes using his steel, and we've been teaming up and having a lot of fun. And we think we've got a really good formula that's simple, that you guys can recreate in your own home using the baking steel and what do you call these? What do you call this setup?
So it's inspired from Mauricio over at the Perfect Loaf, and it is using a usually cast iron pan, and you add lava rocks to it.
Yeah.
By pouring water over the rocks, you create this great amount of steam in the oven, which allows the dough to expand, gives you that oven spring, and keeps the crust, exactly how you're going to want it, nice and crispy once it comes out, but not too thick and dense.
That's great. Awesome. And I tell you, man, it's incredible, the breads we've been tasting here, and too much bread almost, but like beautiful, just absolutely stunning loaves with just a few different little tweaks. But I guess first we'll get right into this. First things first, we're going to talk about using the same strategy we use when we make we're trying to keep it really simple. Our 72-hour dough, where we just kind of mix everything together and let it proof. You have some ideas to kind of, one thing about our 72-hour dough, which is awesome, is the glutens are so chill and relaxed, it stretches really, really easy. But with bread, we want to tighten up that network of gluten, right? So you have some ideas on how we can do that?
Yeah, with a traditional sourdough loaf, quite often people really want to do this large process of folding. You start with an autolyse where the flour absorbs all the liquid, then you slowly add your starter and your salt. And by doing these folds, you're able to create this great amount of tension in the dough, which allows it to rise. So we're hoping that we can kind of avoid some of that just a little bit by doing a bit of a bulk rise, just like we do with the 72-hour dough. Mm-hmm. And then maybe just a couple folds instead of the complete process that we would normally do with sourdough, which is anywhere from 4 to 6, depending on the dough.
Yeah, and so we're gonna do a 24-hour ferment.
Yep.
And like our pizza dough, lately we've been talking a lot about room temperature and cold fermentation. Bread in particular, it's just so much easier to end on a cold note.
Very much.
Dough is easier to handle.
Yep.
Agree with that, right?
I do, yep.
So we're gonna do the same thing now. So why don't we, in fact, we're going to map out this recipe for you guys and send it in a blog post with the follow-up. But for now, we'll just talk about what goes into this recipe. And it's a 65% hydrated dough, meaning it's wet, but it's a little bit easier to handle than, say, our pizza dough, right?
Yeah, it's a great loaf to kind of learn the ways of artisan bread, and especially a specific technique, which it's a little nuanced.
Yeah, it is nuanced, totally. So we're using 460 grams of flour, right?
Yep.
You recommended that we kind of split it up. So we used half all-purpose, 230 grams, and we used 230 grams of bread flour. We love organic, by the way.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So half and half. Now, do you have any ideas that, should we stress out about if we don't have, those exact flours? What do you think?
Nothing to stress out about. The bread flour just provides a little bit more strength.
Yep.
We like the all-purpose because it makes the dough kind of soft. It sounds a little contradictory, but the combination is really nice and produces a really great crumb on the loaf.
So be adventurous. Don't be so shy. If all they have is bread flour, that's fine.
We also like to add a little bit of specialty grain sometimes too.
Specialty grain.
Explain that. Yeah, so a specialty grain can be anything from just a whole wheat or a white wheat, some ancient grains like an einkorn, or one of my personal favorites is spelt.
Oh, I love spelt. Great call.
So we'd add about 60 grams of spelt as part of that total number. So it'd be 400 of the all-purpose and bread mix, and then about 60 of spelt. And it just adds a really nice flavor.
That's great. And I've done that with like pita bread or English muffins, kind of a nice way to throw some more nutrients into your breads, especially if you're eating them nonstop like we do, right? You want to get some good flavors in there. What do you think, Chef?
I agree. I love the spelt in our English muffins.
Spelt English muffin.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Don't tell anyone else that's our secret. All right. So we've got the flour pre-measured. Again, you guys have been following us long enough. We need to use scales to measure everything. Do not take that short. You can't eyeball this stuff. Good luck trying to eyeball 60 grams of spelt.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen, right? So like all of our ingredients, and there's a lot of talk about bread makers and the salt coming at the very end. We have found, I don't know if you agree with this, just taking the salt and dissolving it in the water first kind of eliminates that problem a lot of times. So
I haven't had any issues doing that, especially with this particular recipe. Kind of adding it all at once seems to work well.
And can we give a shout out to these guys here, by the way?
Sure.
Oh, look at this.
Absolutely.
Shout out to Duxbury Salt Works, a local salt company right down the street here. They kind of, you can't really say manufacture, can you?
Beautiful, beautiful sea salt.
Awesome flakes, right? I found that they actually dissolve really nice in the water too. Just kind of a nice little intangible thing. Can I take a picture of this? Go the other way. Yeah. It's a Duxbury salt in the, right?
Yeah.
It's great.
Fantastic.
So anyway, obviously I take the water and then put the salt into the water and just lightly just mix it up and let this dissolve. It takes a few minutes. So while we're doing that, take the yeast, dump it right in, and just kind of whisk this together. Okay? How am I doing so far, man?
So far, so good. Like a pro.
Like a pro. All right. And now what I'm going to do next, we're going to go to stories. You can just go the other way. That's all. What we do next is, I guess, whisk the water again, make sure that salt's dissolved.
Yep.
And just pour right in?
Yeah, absolutely. And even if it's not completely dissolved, the majority of it should be dissolved.
Sure.
And it'll be totally fine.
And I guess what we're trying to avoid is if you put that salt directly in contact with that yeast, you might kind of damage the yeast and it might not, wake up.
Yeah, it might not give you the result that you're hoping
for. So we kind of separate them a little bit, pour our water in, GIR, and just kind of mix, right? This is just like our 72-hour dough, guys. It's super simple.
You can also do it in a stand mixer too. Found it works just as well. Just don't want to over mix it. Say maybe 2 minutes?
Yeah, 2 minutes seems to be a good
You can add everything in. Similar order, flour, then yeast, and then the salted water.
Yep.
And just let it mix, and then
take it out. And I guess that's the nice thing about doing it by hand is you're not going to over mix it by hand.
Yeah,
almost, absolutely. I'd say, I'm not going to say impossible because then like The Rock might try it out, right?
Prove us wrong.
Or Craig or The Rock guy, who's stronger?
Pretty similar.
Kind of similar. Once we do this, all I'm going to do now is kind of lightly press this stuff together. And all I'm doing is I'm trying to make sure I don't have any dry clumps of flour. Right? And these bench scrapers are great, by the way. Just kind of keep pressing in. How's my kneading skills, Joe?
Good. Sorry, can we make a note that we're not making a sourdough currently?
Correct. Oh, yes. This is not a sourdough.
This is a yeasted bread.
Yep. And we will give you a version of that if you'd like. But for now, this is all yeast all day long.
Sourdough process is so long, it might have to be a series, I think, if we were to try to walk people
through
that's
right. Yeah, that's right. different, everything's, the whole thing changes. But for now, I do this for about 2 minutes. I feel as though like I've got all the dry clumps out of this and it's ready to go back into the bowl. Now, here's where, if this was pizza dough, I would kind of set it and forget it. But now that we're doing a bread, we want to toughen up this gluten network a little bit. So we're gonna do things a little bit differently, but for now, it goes back into the bowl covered. And why don't you take over from here, Ben?
Sure.
This is uncharted territories for me.
Yeah.
What do you do?
So I leave it out on the counter between 6 and 12 hours. Overnight works great. It is, super easy. You mix it up right before you go to bed. You let it kind of hang out on the counter overnight until it rises, maybe 2 or 3x. Then you're able to take it out and start actually shaping the dough. We simplified this step down to just doing essentially a pre-shape and then a final shape, utilizing some of that initial bulk time to hopefully build some of the strength, break the dough down, get the yeast going, a bit of everything. Really just to kind of be the all-in-one process that you normally would have multiple steps for in a sourdough bread. We want to make it easy. We want to make it so it works great for all of you guys. So once the dough sits overnight, little movie magic here.
Okay, yeah, nice.
You'll end up with this beautiful dough.
So this is coming out of the bowl, Ben, right?
Yeah.
After 12 hours. Now, this was cold at some point or not?
This was never cold.
Okay.
So this is on a complete room temperature dough.
Okay.
And the first shape, there's a ton of ways to do this. Everybody has their own opinions, and honestly, I often do it a little bit differently. But for the first step, our goal is to get the dough folded in on itself as much as possible. And I recommend just trying to wipe off any excess flour. I do a fold like this.
Like an envelope.
Yep. And then I'll even take the other sides and put them kind of over with a third overlap.
Wow.
And then ultimately, you're going to want to get this into a ball, just like we would do with the pizza dough, just for that first phase. So I'll grab the corners and kind of try to tuck them in a bit. And as I'm rotating it, kind of bring it around. And ultimately, you flip it and you're able to shape it
like a big ball
into a ball.
Sweet.
And if you want a bench scraper, if the dough gets a little sticky on you, you can use that to kind of rotate and turn it as well.
Oh, that's great.
And then just kind of get it into a ball. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be super, super, super tight. The tighter you can get it, the better, but I'll just do a couple more here. And don't be afraid of knocking the air out of the dough. I found that with the yeasted dough in comparison to sourdough, where you really want to be gentle, with the yeasted dough, you can be a little rough on it. It almost actually benefits a little bit better.
So you're trying to take some of that air out.
Yeah, and if there's little bubbles, sometimes you can even just pull them a bit and be a little rough. You can hear some of the bubbles squeaking out there. And as you do it, you can feel free to kind of tuck under a little and do your rotates that way. And I find that works really well for getting
That's cool.
a nice
That's
shape
beautiful.
dough.
Yep. And now what do we do?
Now, set it to the side.
Okay.
I'll show you here just for the sake of the video. You put a little flour over the top.
Okay.
And then if you have a towel that you use, just
dry
set that
towel.
right on top.
Right on top.
Dry towel.
So we
right
want
on
that,
top.
basically want that airtight, everybody, right?
Yep.
Airtight for
about 30 minutes to an hour.
Wow. So go time it. So another 30 minutes to an hour.
Yep.
I hope you guys schedule a lot of time today.
Yeah. And the goal here is to let it, you want to see it kind of get some slack. You want to see it loosen up again.
Okay.
You don't want it to be tight when you open it the second time, because we're going to do one more shape before we put it in the basket.
Oh, great. In fact, we got the basket.
Fantastic. All right. So we already have one that we shaped earlier.
You want the ribbon in there?
Yeah, that's perfect. So this is one of the doughs that we shaped earlier. So you can see it's a little more flat.
So this has been through that process,
Yep.
and now this is after 30 minutes.
Yep.
It's totally relaxed now. So can you compare them for a second?
Yeah. So you can
Look
see
at the size. So this is the same exact size dough. We just folded this one. After 30 minutes, it's going to look like this.
And it's really soft and supple, and you can see it jiggles, and it's got
that's cool. Yeah.
nice feel to it.
Totally.
So,
okay.
So what we'll do next is
we're gonna do this again.
We're gonna knock out some of the air again. And,
interesting.
Anders, you're gonna be familiar with this. Much like the pizza, instead of leaving a crust, I kind of just
press it out
a little, all the way around to the edge. Try to make a bit of a bigger disc here. And then
that smells amazing, by the way, doesn't it? It smells so good. You make this.
You flip it over again.
Okay.
Try to make sure there's no flour, because this is the part that's going to be on the inside. So
what happens if there was flour in there?
You'll often get really big, kind of unsightly bubbles. They'll be a little uneven, and sometimes it affects the texture a bit too. So by just making sure it's going to allow you to have the consistency that you're really hoping.
Gotcha. Okay.
So there's, once again, a few methods to do this, but we're going to do it a really simple way today. It's a guy who's on Instagram, goes by Dan the Baker, who has this really unique technique that I found is so simple and actually gives a pretty similar result to what you would get from some of the more traditional techniques that you've seen of stitching the dough at the end. It's really simple. Get ready. Fold from the bottom up, about halfway.
Okay.
You slightly press in with your fingers just to make sure there's a good seal.
Kind of like a baguette a little bit.
Yeah. You brush the flour off again. You're going to do this at every step. And then you're going to take this top part and you're going to pull it down and over.
Over, okay.
Almost to make a full seal. And you're going to do a press here again.
A light press.
Yep. And at this time, you should have your basket or banneton with a liner inside of it if you prefer. I know some people prefer not to.
Yep. Okay.
I've just been in the habit of using it. And before you use it, you can dust it with a little bit of brown rice flour, actually.
Oh, interesting.
Rice flour doesn't absorb as much liquid, so it doesn't allow the dough to stick.
Oh, interesting. Cool.
So really nice. And if you don't have rice flour, a little all-purpose is okay, but it's not perfect. So just a little in there. And I find by kind of tapping it around, you're able to get a nice even layer.
Sure. Okay.
So the last step here, it's so simple. Grab the outsides.
Okay.
Fold it up together.
What?
Just set it right in
sideways like that?
Goes right in sideways.
Okay.
And then you can take these top parts. I like to kind of just fold over the top of it.
Interesting.
And you can create a little seal. You can start by do a little pinch.
That's it?
That's it. And then you let it set. You'll end up with these little, it's kind of tough to see, these little ends here of the roll.
Okay.
If you want, also we'll do this sometimes, you can kind of pull them together and pull them down and let them connect here to kind of pinch it up and make more of a solid loaf. But as it rests in the fridge overnight, which is the next step, it's going to stretch out. It's going to get a little released. It's going to fill out this basket a little bit more. I actually have one that I prepared last night. So let me just bring it over and I'll show you an example.
You stayed up all night and did this?
All night I did this just for you guys.
All right, so this would go into the fridge like this.
Yeah.
Just like this, into the fridge overnight, covered or uncovered?
I cover it.
All right, we cover it lightly.
And I'll show you. So lightly dust the top with flour, which is just one more step that you would do here. And I use a standard plastic grocery bag.
Look at that.
No nonsense. And you kind of just tuck it underneath.
Keep it closed.
Yeah.
Look at that.
And once it proofs overnight, you'll
Holy
see
smokes.
It's huge.
Wow, that's humongous.
So we've got a big old loaf here.
That's gorgeous.
Which is going to be pretty easy and pretty ready to bake.
That's the same thing, guys. Look at this. Look at the comparison here. Same exact size. This is after an overnight proof in the refrigerator.
Yep.
That's incredible.
I keep my fridge set to about 42 degrees.
Okay.
I'm lucky to be able to have a separate one. It's actually for it's a beer fridge.
Oh, that's nice.
But you know, beer can be just as delicious at 42 degrees as well. But it's fantastic for fermenting. So
good. All right, awesome. So now, into the fridge. This has been overnight.
Yeah.
This has been 12 hours cold. Now we're going to be talking about the bake. Is that right?
That's right.
So let's pause here. That's a great time to pause. Let's get into some questions. This is really amazing.
Okay.
Learning a lot here.
Is there any kneading between the first rise and that initial balling that we've seen today?
So there's no kneading, but kind of as we were showing, just making sure you knock out some of that air a little bit. What it does is it allows the yeast to be redistributed. So then when it does that kind of second rise between the pre-shape and the final shape, it actually can rise a bit because that yeast has been redistributed throughout the dough.
Gotcha. That's awesome.
But no real
not really kneading. Even the initial knead was a light knead by hand, right?
Yeah.
What size dough is this? What size dough ball?
This is just about 750 grams, maybe a little more.
And we're going to create this recipe that we've made for you to make just one dough.
Yes.
So you can make just one. So the water, everything will be laid out for you.
What if you don't have that basket? What can you use?
Yeah. Well, good question. We're going to, first off, anybody who's at class today, if you're on our email list, we're going to send you to a page that has everything that we talk about in the class. What we won't talk about are things that we don't have, but that's a great question because a lot of people don't have these, but these are, what are these, $5 on Amazon, by the way? They're really, if you make a lot of bread, they're great.
They're great there.
But as an alternative, what do you got?
Yeah, so I've seen people use mixing bowls.
Oh, mixing
bowls.
Sure.
With a towel, just like this
perfect.
one. This is a perfect example.
Gotcha.
You flour the towel and stick it in. You can use a colander. Colanders work great as well. Really just something that's going to give you the shape that you want. And these are, I realize, are more round loaves.
Right. I mean,
I like this kind of.
This is a mixing bowl, guys. You can put it
perfect.
in here if you'd like to, too.
Yeah. And then you would just put the towel in.
Right. So it's going to be a different shape. Same principles apply, though. It's still going to be delicious. This is like a go-to nice loaf plan, easy to slice.
Yep.
Right.
If you're baking a lot of bread, it's a great investment to have. It just allows you to proof it overnight, and it keeps the shape of the dough that you're ultimately going to want after you pull the bread out.
I believe that's a 9-inch banneton, right?
I believe it's 9 inch. Yeah. Which I actually think is a little small, personally.
Small.
The ones that I got online are a little shallow in height, and I prefer them to be about an inch taller if you can find them. I have one that I have like that, and I didn't realize it when I purchased it.
We'll try to link to this stuff all in the notes too, guys.
And then back a couple questions about the dough.
Yeah.
Does the temperature of the water matter with such a long fermentation?
That's a great question. My guess, and tell me if I'm wrong, would be because we're doing a room temperature ferment initially, I should say, it should be about room temperature. It's not going to, right?
I personally like to go a little warmer.
Okay,
actually.
why is that?
I didn't mean to
No,
go against
I like it. I love it.
So I like to kind of get things going a little bit.
Okay.
I find that by kickstarting it with about like a 90-degree water,
Sure.
which is just
That's out of your tap, right?
Yeah, it's a little hotter than room temperature water. Not too hot to the touch because you don't want to kill the yeast, but it helps break down the flours a little bit too. It helps if you're using a whole grain, it'll absorb a little better if it's warmer.
Sure. So
but
just
truly,
use your water out of your tap and
Yes.
just get it not scorching hot,
definitely not.
right before it gets scorching hot, and that helps activate the yeast a little faster.
And if you don't feel like doing that and just want to put in room temp water around 76, 75 degrees, that's totally fine, and you'll still make great bread. It's I'm a little particular, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's good. Bread bakers are, you'll notice that like they will really track and dial in the temperatures more so than we do with our pizza dough.
Yeah.
Usually don't have a lot of friends. Stay in
they
dark
don't.
places.
Yeah, making a lot of breads,
And sourdough is even more sensitive.
Yeah,
to
even more
temperature, too. And I'm still learning and making mistakes every day.
Yeah, no, we all are, right? That's what's great about it. But this loaf is forgiving too, guys. We're not so dialed in. We're trying to make it more accessible, generic and accessible for all of us today.
Absolutely.
These few techniques, it's going to be incredibly delicious. Wait till you see.
Cool. We're caught up.
All right. We'll cut up the mess. So now let's talk about the oven setup.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm going to kind of pan us over to the oven.
Sure.
In fact, let's do this. So shout out to Monogram first.
Beautiful ovens.
We've got our oven set up a little differently. What do you want to do, Chef? Bring it closer?
No, just higher.
Okay. We've got baking steel in the top and a baking steel in the bottom rack, but we kind of shifted things around because we've got some space underneath here. In this pan, we have lava rocks. And over here, we've got a baking pan with actually moist towels inside.
Yeah.
Right? And you want to explain what's going on there, what we're trying to do?
Sure.
I'll take over here.
Sure. So with the lava rocks, we're really using that to help create some initial steam. So you're going to add some water right to the rocks right before you put your loaf
Think of
in.
a sauna. You guys been in saunas before? Like those rocks are usually lava rocks.
That's exactly right.
Mm-hmm.
So once you do that, and if you have an oven that opens down, you need to be really careful to put a towel over your glass lid on the opening.
Oh, good idea.
Because you could shatter your glass if you get some cold water on it.
Ooh, be careful.
You don't want to do that, especially if you rent.
Oh, good call. Yeah, so you don't want to do that. No, thank you.
And then the towels on the other side are just going to provide some consistent steam. I pour some boiling water over it to the point where
you can actually see it steaming.
And it'll steam for the whole time.
Okay, cool.
But just make sure there's no water sitting in the bottom. You want to go just till about that point.
Oh, interesting.
And then add the water at the towels about 10 minutes before you're ready to bake.
Okay.
And the rock should be preheating for an hour before.
With the steels.
Correct. And we preheat to around 500 degrees.
Okay, 500 preheat.
For 1 hour minimum.
Now, if I don't have, first of all, lava rocks are available at Home Depot.
Yeah.
They're $10, right, for a bag of 20 pounds of them,
yeah,
Chef? Something like that?
Very inexpensive.
Really inexpensive. If you don't have lava rocks, substitute more rags in there, right? That would work.
Absolutely.
We're using
whiskey stones one time.
Whiskey stones. Sure. Oh, yeah. No, it's great.
Yeah.
Whiskey stones, great. Anyway, that's our oven setup. It's been going for an hour. So what we do now is we're going to launch a bread, right? Want to do that? And
absolutely.
Then you guys can see our steps. We don't need to be here for the entire bake today because we can show you what we created earlier today. But let's go talk about that then.
So I like to use a pizza peel to launch. Nothing fancy here.
Awesome.
And a little bit of parchment paper.
Ooh, parchment paper. Nice.
So it really helps you make sure you get the dough in the oven easily. Makes it just as easy to take out.
And we're not using broiler, so who cares?
Correct.
Right.
So to make it get out easy, I take the parchment paper and I set it over the top of my dough.
Okay.
And I place the pizza peel.
Oh, look at
just
this.
touch it to it, and then you invert it.
What?
And when
That's
you're
so
done,
easy. That's amazing. Look at
dough's
that.
ready to go.
So
you got
easy.
a big old dough
Holy
here ready to
smokes,
go.
that's beautiful.
So then the only
Wow.
other thing you need to do before you put it in the oven is you need to score your dough.
Score goals
And-
like hockey? Well,
I like slice. I mean, hopefully we'll score some hockey goals tonight. But
yeah, right.
in this case, we're going to be slicing some
Okay.
dough with this tool. It's a razor blade, and it's called a lame.
Mm-hmm.
I've also heard people call it a lame, which doesn't sound as great, or I'm not really
Sure.
sure what the right pronunciation is.
Yeah.
If anyone knows, please tell us. But what you do is, regardless of pronunciation, you're going to use it to score your loaf.
And what is the reason for that?
You score your loaf so it doesn't burst at the seams.
Okay.
Because we've built so much tension already in the folding process and the bulk,
Oh, gotcha.
you want the dough to be able to open how you want and in the way that you want. So to control that, we slice it
Okay.
and release some of that initial tension and allow the dough to open in the
Oh,
way
that's sweet, man.
that we
Awesome.
want. So really sharp razor blade. You try to do kind of a quick straight motion if possible,
Okay.
just like this. So I go from about just a little below the edge on the bottom, and you just go
Look at that.
straight
Just a
down.
slice. Look at that. Beautiful.
And it should start to open for you. And
Mhm.
what I also
And
found
you went down
helps-
pretty deep. You went down about a quarter inch, half
quarter inch, a
Yeah.
little deeper.
Okay.
I actually go back again,
Yeah. Okay.
and I'll go just a little deeper.
Sure.
I found that with the yeasted dough, this helps.
Mhm.
And if you want to get one of those kind of the ears where they curl up, you can even go in again on a slight angle
Yeah.
to release this side a bit and allow
Awesome.
it to open a bit.
Super cool. Beautiful. Now what?
So once we're done here, going in the oven.
Are we steamed up already? We don't need to do anything else?
So there's just a couple more things you need to do.
All right.
So when we're going to put it in the oven,
Okay.
the first step is we need to pour the water into the lava rocks.
Okay. Ooh, interesting. All right.
So we're going to open the oven,
Okay.
grab our pan of rocks, I use a cup
You
and
can
a
see what he's
half
doing
of
here.
water, and I
Okay.
try to make it as cold as possible.
Okay.
I'm gonna add
Oh, look at
all
that
in.
steam.
Look at
Do you
that
see that?
steam.
That's awesome.
Slide the rocks back in.
All right.
The dough is going to be launched, back of the peel, back of the steel.
Look at that. Just like
it.
at pizza. Isn't that beautiful,
Pizza.
guys?
And we're going to add some steam.
Ah, what? Look at all that steam. Sweet. Close her
And
up.
that's it.
That's it, huh? That's amazing. We've got this incredible steam thing going on with the steels. Don't worry, the steel's gonna be fine.
Yep.
We just need to dry it off afterwards.
Yep.
We're gonna bake this for about 40 minutes.
Yep.
So it's a 40-minute bake at
Got this all
500. What?
I got this all wet.
You got it all wet. At 500.
Yeah, so we're
Wow.
gonna do a little bit of a change actually.
Okay.
So we're gonna do the first 20 minutes with the steam at 500.
Okay.
Then after 20, we're gonna pull out the lava rocks and we're
Okay.
gonna pull out the pan.
Ah,
And then we're gonna turn down the temperature to 450 and bake for another 20 to 25 minutes.
so it's done in two parts.
Two parts.
Half with steam,
Yep.
half without.
Yep.
And what are these things?
So there's these great baking steel rings, which can be worn as bracelets, but they're super functional. So
Mhm.
during the bake, so you make sure that the bottom of your dough doesn't get too dark.
I was gonna take one of these.
Yeah, so this is actually one that did get a little too dark,
Oh, that's
and
okay. Great.
which is fine. So this is one of the loaves that we made with this process.
Isn't that, guys, this is like incredible. This is like, he brought this in cold. It's still got a crust on it. It's gorgeous. In fact, we sliced them up too.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
can open one up too. But first, we're gonna check that out. So show us what you would do with these bracelets on the bottom.
So the bracelets, once you're baking, you'll take the dough after the first step,
So the second
the first
half.
20 minutes, and you're able to set it on these to elevate it in the oven.
Ah, so now you're not gonna burn the bottom.
That's right. You won't burn the bottom, and you'll also still get airflow underneath it
Okay.
to where it'll continue to cook.
You get
It's
this
just-
beautiful color of this thing. It's unreal.
Yeah, it allows the top to get a little bit more color and even out with the bottom because it's not sitting straight on the steel. The top is not sitting straight on the steel, and the
Gotcha.
bottom is a chance to breathe.
Beautiful. It smells amazing in here. In fact, I gotta put a timer on that.
Oh yeah, maybe something like that. Yeah.
So yeah, again, use your timer, guys.
You use convection.
If we have convection, we definitely use it
Yep.
because the convection is just a fan that's blowing air around, making it more even heat in between. Right?
Absolutely.
Totally.
And one other thing I found is,
Yeah.
so I don't have a great oven at home, not as good of an oven, so I find that it doesn't retain steam inside of it as well.
Okay.
So I will often spray a little bit more
Oh, you'll open the oven up and spray more in.
About 5 or 10 minutes in.
Oh,
I mean,
cool.
if your oven's not retaining steam, you're running a lower risk to actually lose some of the steam that's been built up in
Totally
there.
makes sense. Yeah,
But in this case, we're going to most likely not do it since this oven will retain the
yeah,
steam.
this is a monogram. These are awesome.
Yes.
We've made a lot of breads. We've made just our ciabatta breads and baguettes, but these artisan loaves, these, by the way, like you guys, you have to make this. This is like, show us some of the bread that we've cut into.
Sure, yeah. So this is,
I mean, look at these. Look, in fact, we can probably cut into this. You wanna cut into
absolutely,
this?
yeah.
Let's cut into this, but you can see these like holes in here. Let's cut this one here, Chef.
You got it.
You guys want to watch this? Here, hold on one second. Let me get this on video.
Right. This is always the most nerve-wracking part.
Yeah, right? You're like,
Right. You never know what you're going to cut into.
Nicely done. Now we peek inside. Oh my goodness. Look at
Ta-da!
that. Just gorgeous.
Beautiful.
Unbelievable. And look at the crust here, just all around. So it's got a nice crisp on the outside. Just beautiful. Yeah. Incredible. So that is, right?
Yeah.
We're going to be continue baking this.
Maybe a couple more questions?
Yeah, let's do a couple
Absolutely.
more questions. Let's do it.
If you don't have rings, what else can you use?
Great. Find something that's obviously can handle 500 degrees.
Yep.
Before we created these are bracelets that we made available. You guys will link to these too. These can withstand up to 500 degrees. I used to use tongs, like
Yeah.
metal tongs to elevate my bread. So think of, you know, here's a whisk. So in other words, something to balance that bread off, the
Yeah.
steel, just to get that initial, you want to prevent it from burning a little bit. And tongs would work, coat hanger will work,
Tinfoil.
tinfoil.
I've rolled up a piece of
beautiful.
tinfoil and made a
Smart.
ring out of it.
Yep,
And I
beautiful.
just set the ring on about a half-inch tall,
Oh,
or about the
perfect.
same
That's
height as
brilliant.
this.
There you go.
Worked fantastic.
Beautiful.
What does the steam actually do?
Yeah,
Good question.
sure. So the steam,
We have no idea.
yeah, I'm not sure. We just heard it's cool.
Google.
So the steam, what it does is it allows the bread, the outside of the bread, to stay soft long
Yeah.
enough to rise and get the spring that you want.
Oh, nice.
So if you were to try to bake this without any steam, you
Mhm.
wouldn't get this peeling. You wouldn't be able to get this opening, and because the outside would get too hard before it's able to rise and expand. So that's why even adding the steam in the crummier oven like I have
It does a big
ensures that you're able to have it wet enough to where you'll keep getting the rise throughout the whole process. You want to make sure you don't get it too wet, because it'll kind of have this different problem where you just won't have any texture in the top when it
so be
opens up.
careful. Gotcha.
So it takes some work, takes some
Yeah, this
practice.
is
Don't
just
be
gorgeous.
discouraged, but the best news is that the bread is delicious,
I can smell
regardless
it.
of how it looks.
Lots of bread too. Need some tasters over here today. You
Yeah.
got some jelly? Did you bring jelly?
I think I got some. Maybe.
Any other questions?
Good
Jeff?
butter too, maybe?
Butter, yes, butter. Olive oil? Good
Yeah.
olive oil?
Just let people know we're going to send every tool, spray,
Okay.
everything.
Yes.
Yeah, so the rule here's what we're gonna do, guys. We're gonna sum up everything here in another email and the follow-up email. We're gonna create a page where you have access to get all the stuff that we talked about, where you can get it, etc., along with the recipe. And I think that's it. I think it's
Yeah.
everything else. And if you have any comments or questions, we'll repost this up on YouTube and Facebook. Drop your comments below. We hope you like it. And if you do like it, share it with your friends. We'd love to help create incredible breads with you guys at home. Anybody else?
And tell us what you figured out. If you found something that
Oh,
works,
good question,
or
yeah.
something that we did that didn't work for you and you found a better way to do it, we're always learning. So just
Yeah.
let us know what worked for you, and we'll share it out too.
Be
So,
adventurous. Yeah,
Yes.
go for it. Awesome. Thank you, guys. Thanks for coming.
thanks everyone.
Thank you, Ben, for being here.
Thanks for having me, Anders. Thanks,
Thank
guys.
you, Craig. Peace out,
Bye.
everybody. Thank you. Be safe. Be healthy.